So it looks like this is the first and campaign civic update of 2024. I want to thank you all for joining me and say Happy New Year. But as usual, we want to keep this quick, and so we might as well go ahead and get into it. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the resignation of Dr. Claudine Gay, who was now formerly the president of Harvard University. A lot of people have been asking me to weigh into this, and the main question I've been getting is, was this resignation racially motivated? Meaning, were the pressures put on her coming from a racially motivated position? And I think that's a really good question. Number one, she is the first black woman to be a president at Harvard University, and now she's the president with the shortest tenure. All right. Also, if you look at some of the people who came up with these plagiarism allegations, I think it's fair to say that they have a bad record when it comes to race. And so I think it's fair to call their motivations into question. And anybody who's been following me for a while knows that I believe systemic racism is real and that it needs to be dealt with in significant ways in society in order to better our society. And so I take this issue very seriously. And anytime the question comes up, I try to look at each instance based on its merits. And I think that's how everybody should deal with this race conversation. But unfortunately, we have some people who never see race in anything. It doesn't matter what happened. They never think racism had anything to do with it. On the other side, honestly, you have people who see race every time an issue comes up. They always say that race was involved, and it's almost an automatic response. And the reason I think that's wrong as well is because if I'm trying to convince people that systemic racism is real, but I'm not offering a real analysis and I see it in everything, then I think you lose credibility for those real instances when it needs to be acknowledged. So I want to look at this with that type of analysis and not just jump to conclusions or go based on one tribe's interpretation or another's. So if we're going to get to the bottom of this, I think we have to look at the facts. And so let's first start with the timeline and some of the things that happened to see if this was racially motivated primarily. On October 7th, I think the timeline starts on October 7th with the terrorist attack in Israel. Right after that happens, you have some groups from Harvard University who issue a statement saying that Israel's policies are entirely responsible for the unfolding violence that was happening in that region. Very strong statement. Got a lot of pushback. You even had some students on campus who were saying they didn't feel comfortable based on some of the rhetoric that was happening on campus. And now the president of Harvard and presidents at other universities start getting the scope kind of goes on them to say, well, what are you doing about these anti-Semitic positions? We can debate on whether those were anti-Semitic or what the presidents can do. That's another issue, but that's where I think it kind of starts. On October 24th, the New York Post asks Harvard University about multiple allegations of plagiarism against Dr. Gay. All right. So after this happens, these presidents start getting pressured. Then you get these allegations. Dr. Gay does what she's supposed to do, and she subsequently initiates an independent investigation into those allegations. Then we go down to November 3rd, and there's a Title IX investigation involving Harvard and other institutions about anti-Semitism on campus. That goes to December 5th, where Gay and two other university presidents go in front of the House Education Committee again about anti-Semitism and what they're doing about that on campus. One of the major lines of questioning that a lot of people saw and became an issue was a question that was asked by Elise Stefanik. She's a Republican from New York, and she asked Dr. Gay, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules against bullying and harassment? And I would say that Gay didn't give a very good answer to that. She was kind of equivocating even afterwards when she got a lot of blowback for her response. She ended up apologizing. She ended up issuing a correction. That really made this thing blow up. People didn't like her response. And so this whole thing blows up. Something else to keep in mind, when it comes to the plagiarism allegations, one of the people who brought this up and was a major player in kind of exposing it was Christopher Rufo. Christopher Rufo is a conservative strategist. Christopher Rufo is also the person that made critical race theory into this huge boogie monster that basically has blown up America's conversation about race for the last few years. That's who this is. So the first thing I'll say about these allegations is that they were made in bad faith. These allegations were not made to make sure that Harvard was maintaining its academic integrity. These allegations were made to get Dr. Claudine Gay to resign and have to leave. That's why this stuff was being looked into. If we look at the timeline, that's it. Now, the question is, was that primarily motivated because she was black, or primarily motivated on her response or lack of response or whatever when it comes to this Israeli conflict and also what they were calling anti-Semitism? While I think race may have played a role, I personally think there's a stronger argument that it was really about her handling of the Israeli stuff that put the target on her back. Why do you say that, Justin? Because if you recall, she went to that congressional hearing with two other university presidents. One of those presidents was Liz McGill, who was the president of the University of Pennsylvania. Liz McGill, who is white, was forced to resign based on that hearing before Dr. Gay was. So I'm not saying that Rufo and all these, there weren't some folks that wanted her out because they don't like a black woman that was being Harvard president. I'm sure there were people who felt that way. But I think what really blew this up was what happened on Harvard's campus and the people who said, hey, I don't like her answer when it comes to how they're dealing with anti-Semitism on campus, whether that was fair or not, you be the judge. We're going to get her out. So what I see is bad faith. I see them looking for the plagiarism in bad faith. And once that was found, once there was some plagiarism was found, I don't think Harvard can ignore that. So whether the allegations were made in bad faith or not, if they're substantive, I think Harvard had to look at that. And there are other university presidents who have been let go because of that. Now, again, this doesn't take race out of the picture. I think it may have played a role. I don't think it was the primary driver in this specific case. Just my opinion. You can agree or disagree. I think it may have been present. I don't think it was the primary driver. In other words, if she were white, I think she was still got hit with this because they were mostly focused on her response to what was going on in Israel, Hamas, and what they saw as anti-Semitism. All right. So if you like information like this, conversations like this, you should listen to myself and Christopher Butler on the Church Politics Podcast. I'll catch you next time. Take care.